Hey everyone, and welcome to the end of the week on the pod, the football experience. I'm Caleb. He's Nev. Nev, how you going?
Not bad, man. How's it going, Caleb?
Oh, it's going good. It's going good, and a nice midweek of football to sink our teeth into. And the stakes are really high when you get to those second legs of the quarterfinal stage of the Champions League, and you could kind of feel it. I don't know if you agree.
I think there was one game that actually two games that stood out the most out of them, and they were the two that I watched. But yeah, I think you're right with that. Like the stakes just keep on getting higher and higher as we get into that business end.
Mm. And I think it's fitting to start. We're going to start with the reigning champions, who no longer will feel the stakes of the late competition, despite a valiant effort to retain and to defend their title, which I thought was really good to see from him. Of course, that's Real Chelsea. Um, a lot to unpack here, Nev. I'm gonna roll the ball to you and listen to what you have to say about what you thought of the game.
I think we sort of got it. Well, at least my prediction, I sort of got it wrong. Where I thought it would be a relatively simple game for Real, and they ended up getting the job done. So in terms of the result, we got it right. But in terms of how the game swung or how it played out, my prediction was off. I didn't expect them to turn it around so quickly and so rapidly within a week. And pretty much from the first whistle, they were on top of Real. And if we're it's difficult to say, like, because Real were just so tremendous in the first tie that it's difficult to say, oh, Chelsea over the two legs deserved to go through, because Real definitely were the better team in the first leg. So, and in the second leg, it was a moment of brilliance from Luka Modric to bring it all square to back to 3-1 to take it to extra time, and then obviously the most informed number 9 comes up with the what ends up being the winning goal in extra time, Benzema.
And
But
who and
yeah,
and whose pass did you rate Luka Modric's pass over? What did you compare it to in that message you sent it to me?
yeah. So I sent you a private message the day after, and I said that for me that pass is probably better than Kaká's pass against Liverpool in that what was it, the 2005 UCL
Yeah,
final.
the '05 final.
Now,
That's
obviously,
my favourite pass of all time.
yeah, that's like both they both are extraordinary. Like they're pinpoint accurate passes. I think that Modric's one just looks fancier because it's outside of the boot, whereas Kaká's one is inside of the boot. But if we're talking about like they're both important because that the Real one took it to was the goal that took it to extra time, and obviously that goal was in a final, but was that the third goal as well? So
Yeah, yeah, it was the third one on the stroke of half time.
yeah, so like if we're talking about it from importance, it wasn't like it was the winning goal, but it was like the goal that should have ended the tie
Yeah,
in a final. So in terms of
and
weighting, yeah, you could probably argue that's better, but I think this one was more important just because Real were on the brink of going out of the Champions League.
no, you're right there. In fact, I think I gave you that argument on importance because you think it's a final, and that Kaká pass. So obviously, normally if you just look at him in a vacuum, you just rate one in a final over one in a quarterfinal second leg. But in terms of importance, 100%, you're right that Real were going out of that tie, and took again another moment of Luka Modric brilliance. I thought he was so important in the comeback against PSG. But just focusing on the passes before I let you go back to your point, For me, it's still the Kaka pass because of everything around it. I think he turned Steven Gerrard in midfield, and then he didn't even need to look up, and he just put this beautiful 45-yard pass bouncing twice to eventually roll just into the path of Crespo around Carragher, who thought he had a chance to get it, so he slid in, but totally bamboozled him. And then the finish from Crespo, one touch, and he sort of stabs it with the outside of his foot, but gets this spin that brings it back around the keeper, back into the goal. It's just one of the best goals I've seen in a final, up there with probably Bale's overhead and Zidane's sort of scissor kick. Just a wonderful goal, really. But so I just still got it just a bit. But that Luka Modric one, I get you on the technical aspect to pull that off outside of the boot. Again, that one where the defender sort of runs underneath the ball because it's going that way, and then it curls with the tail back over the head, and Rodrigo just had to run onto it. So just wonderful passes, really. I don't want to take anything away from either one.
Yeah, but I think it definitely goes up there. Like, it was pinpoint accurate, and like I said, it's more. It looks prettier just because it's outside the boot, and like if you look at it again, like he gets the ball, he looks up split second and just delivers it. Like he doesn't hesitate. He just sees that run and finds it like with pinpoint accuracy. And another thing that I want to mention before I get your take on how you saw the tie play out, and then obviously we'll get into one sort of semi-controversial moment. Luka Modric he's been showing it for years, but I think especially this year since Ronaldo left, and you could say the same for Benzema. I saw I think last year or the year before, Carlo Ancelotti picked his all-time 11 of players that he's coached. I think it was on BT Sports or on Sky, and he picked Luka Modric. I think it was on Sky. He picked Luka Modric and as one of his midfielders, and Carragher was actually surprised by that. He was like, "What?" Like he obviously rates him, but Carlo Ancelotti spoke of him so highly. And I think now, since over the last 2 years or 3 years since Ronaldo's left, he's showing why he's the best. I'd say the best midfielder in the world.
That is a big call. You'd have to give me some time to stew on that one. At this stage, I mean, he's been in the conversation for so long, but I think as well, Carragher's surprise might be looking at it and seeing the stage of career that he's working with Luka Modric. I know he had him in 13-14 as well, so he had him sort of in his prime as well. I've had Luka Modric in that conversation for best midfielder. It's hard as well because you've got to define what kind of role you want from your midfielder. You're not going to compare Luka Modric to Fabinho and Casemiro and Rodri, for example. You've got to even isolate it even further. But in terms of, he's always been in that conversation since he pretty much went to Real. And in terms of all-time greats, I mean, I think he'd be very high up the list. You look at, obviously, the eye test. He's a fantastic player to watch. Punching above his weight for what his size is unbelievable, the way he gets around the pitch and is still so tenacious in challenges as well. It's a sneaky part of his game. And then the career accomplishments is right up there with anyone. I mean, the top argument you could have had for the last 10, 15 years really has been Modric or Iniesta. And I think those two are fair to compare because they do very similar roles. And I can't put one above the other. They're both so spectacular. Maybe Iniesta might get the edge just because of the career, but that's because he was lucky enough to play for Spain when they had a golden generation as well. But he was a big part of that and obviously won 2 Euros and won a World Cup. But, I mean, Modric getting Croatia to the final is pretty much as good as winning it in my books in terms of an accomplishment for an individual. So I definitely wouldn't harshly disagree with that. I'd just say it's a big call and you'd have to give me time to look at that one.
Yeah, I think the Iniesta comparison is, in terms of their play style, is the most similar because they can dribble with the ball, they can deliver cross field passes. But I think Iniesta played a little bit more forward. Modric has the ability to sit. And in terms of trophies, I think, like obviously like Iniesta played in that golden generation for Spain, but Modric's, I think, club career, I think he has just as many trophies, and he has 4 Champions League titles, I think. So in terms of like club trophies, he has, Iniesta probably does pip him in that, but it's a very similar record with that. And it's I think a couple of weeks ago we mentioned it's a shame that someone like you can mention so many players like a Lewandowski who will never, I'm going to say never going to be able to win a European Championship or a World Cup, a player of that stature. Ronaldo most likely will never win a World Cup. This is going to be his last one. And then obviously there's a lot of that English generation, like they never won a European Championship or a World Cup. Your Scholes, your Gerrards, your Lampards, etc. And that's when a tournament comes once every 4 years. That's obviously going to be a very limited number of names who win it. But yeah, I think the Iniesta comparison is the most fair one.
Yeah, definitely, and I think it's 4-all in terms of European Cup or Champions Leagues, but I think you could probably give the edge to Modric there because he was probably more important, and it's a three-peat in there as well. Whereas Iniesta in 06, you could say he wasn't all that important, although he was breaking into the team. And I remember watching Iniesta around that time, and obviously all the rave was about Messi. But I remember watching Messi on the right, and then Iniesta would play on the left back in those days. And I remember watching Iniesta and thinking, this guy's nearly as good as Messi. I mean, he was young at that time as well, and I just thought, I mean, Messi's great, no doubt, but this guy's nearly as good as him. And I can heap praise on Modric as well until the cows come home because he's just been so good. I love the fact that he played in the Premier League for a bit and killed it as well. I always love it when players can translate their qualities, especially from leagues so different as La Liga and the Premier League, and you can still be just as effective. I think that's one of the final tests for a player, really. And if you talk about all-time great arguments, that's why I'm a bit disappointed Messi never went to the Premier League because I would to see that there. Obviously, I'm not saying he would struggle in the Premier League. I just want to see him, how he plays in what undoubtedly would have been a different style of football for him to play, but that's for another day anyway. Did you have any other thoughts on the match?
Not really. I think over the 180 minutes, I think it's... I know a lot of people are calling that Chelsea deserved to go through over both legs, but I think it's very 50-50, maybe 55 in one direction. I can't really say which direction, like whether it's some will say Real, some will say Chelsea. It's similar to like a boxing match, where it's literally like one round separates the judges' scorecard. For me, I will touch on the one moment of controversy, the handball for the goal. Who was the player that
Marcus Alonso.
Yeah, Alonso. Like what a finish, by the way.
Yeah,
that was so harsh. Like it just touches your pinky, but it's devastating when that happens. But I guess the letter of the law says if it touches your hand, especially in an attacking sense, and I guess it did slightly change the direction of the ball, like it allowed it to drop a little bit quicker,
so that
he could volley it. And I know we will touch on the Europa League, but this one's still fresh in the mind. There was also a handball in the Barcelona-Frankfurt game, which wasn't given. So my argument will be like, why are attackers getting punished for handballs that are accidental? but why aren't defenders being judged with that same sort of criticism? Because one of the Frankfurt defenders handballed it in like the 80th minute or so. No, it was actually the 60th minute or around there before when it was still 2-0. So like, why isn't that one given, and why isn't the defender punished, but why is the attacker punished? So, but like, we'll get into that like later, I suppose, if you want, or we can touch on it now. Like, I just find it very inconsistent and harsh that it's not treated in the same manner.
I'm fine with it, to be quite honest. I don't think they should be treated in the same manner. Because for me, an attacking handball like the one we saw from Marcus Alonso, while absolutely no doubt is unlucky, the fact is, if his hand's not there, that ball's ballooning at least to his head height, and it's giving Real Madrid defenders a chance to get back in and block that shot, or even prevent that shot from even happening. So the fact that it's hit his hand, and that has inadvertently, obviously, because there was no intention, but it's knocked it down for him to then volley it, means that goal would never have happened if his hand wasn't involved. So for me, I would feel really harshly done by as a defensive team if a hand was used to score a goal, because that's a huge punishment. Whereas defending situations, unless the hand was away from the body, and we're seeing these given now, which is good, but the hand's away from the body, and more importantly, it's got to be blocking either a shot on target or a dangerous situation. If it's like the Rashford one from years ago where he got a penalty against PSG and then he converted it to knock PSG out in that tie. If it's one of those where the shot is going miles over the bar and then it strikes an arm, I don't think that should be given, because that ball was going over the bar anyway. So if anything, the attacker has an advantage now that the ball stayed in play. So for me, that should be, unless like the defender's been an idiot and he's actually tried to handball it. But that's why I don't think they should be judged the same, because a defender accidentally having their hand somewhere may not be preventing any sort of dangerous situation. And in that case, as long as it's accidental, I don't want to see that punished with a penalty. That's too far. That's too much of a punishment for that.
I still think if a defender's gaining an advantage, so especially if you gain possession of the ball afterwards and you're able to like start a counter attack, which happened, or clear it, then I think it should definitely be looked at, because you're still changing the direction of the ball, you're changing the trajectory of it, you're changing where it's going to land, and that, like, unless your hand is like right up against your body. But from memory, I think this one was the Barcelona Frankfurt one. I think that one was like, it was a little bit outside, and I know that, like, you know, if it like deflected off the foot and then it hit his hand, but you're still gaining an advantage for it. So if it's not going to be a penalty, maybe then at least like give indirect free kicks or something, like inside the box.
Yeah, and that's where I wanted to touch on just before you brought up the Barca penalty. And just for the record, if it comes off another body part onto the hand, as long as you're not directing it with your hand intentionally, if it just comes off another body part and then hits the hand in a defensive situation, absolutely not for me, because that's impossible to react to. But you hit the nail on the head. I think there should be different penalties, so to speak, for fouls that occur in the box. I mean, because not every foul that occurs in the box is a direct opportunity to score a goal. There could be some crappy fouls, like touch fouls on the byline with a player back to goal. And I get it. The defending player shouldn't put themselves in a position to give that away. I get that. But at the same time, he's going nowhere near goal, and it's this crappy little touch foul that all of a sudden now it's a penalty for that. That is way too harsh a foul to place on that. I think we should look at different ways. And you say indirect free kick, great. I mean, another one you could look at, maybe taking something from hockey, would be a penalty corner, where it's not as direct as just having a one-on-one penalty. You could maybe have players who can still charge at the ball, but you get a short corner or something like that. So I just think we should, because I can't stand seeing games decided by such nothingness just because it occurred in this area of the pitch that we deem has to be a goal-scoring opportunity. not every foul in the box is a goal scoring opportunity. So to be given an opportunity, 75, 80% chance to score from a penalty just for a nothingness that occurs in the box, I'm all for getting rid of that if there's a way.
I get your point, but my argument to that would be if it's a foul in the middle of the pitch, you can't argue that it's not going to be a foul in the box. So that's a lot of people's argument as well with that. But look, I think we should. We're sort of getting away from the Champions League and the Chelsea game by talking about refereeing decisions, and I know I brought it up, but I think one day we should dedicate a whole podcast into possible rule changes, VAR complaints, and all that stuff. So yeah, I think we'll move away, and I want to get
them. This is the drip for this week, and then if we see any more, then we'll just drip feed them in. So,
yeah,
but we'll get away from this thing.
I know, like, because this can develop into such a long topic, and I actually reckon it's deserving of its own like hour and a half deep dive. So look, I want to get your take on the Chelsea game, whether you agree with me or not in how you saw the game. Because that's how I saw it. I thought Chelsea like actually dominated, like over the 90 minutes, to be honest.
Definitely. I came away from that second leg. I felt it going into the two legs from the start, but I came away thinking Chelsea are undoubtedly a better team than Real Madrid for me. But Tuchel, I think ultimately has to take the lion's share of the blame for this. I mean, his players could have performed better at Stamford Bridge, but he got his matchups all wrong at Stamford Bridge, and he gave them too much of a mountain to climb. And they tried valiantly, and they probably, on the night, I thought they were way more dominant than Real were of them at Stamford Bridge. I mean, at Stamford Bridge, it was really Benzema having an absolute unbelievable first 30 minutes, and then Mendy and Rudiger making a stupid mistake, and that's your 3 goals right there. Whereas this, I thought, was not pretty much 90 minutes of just Chelsea being far superior than Real Madrid. And really what saved them, as we've already touched on, is a moment of Luka Modric magic. Because at that moment, Real Madrid were not getting back into that tie. They'd already copped that Marcus Alonso disallowed goal, which would have made it 3. And then obviously Timo Werner comes in, scores the goal for the third, or started obviously, but scores that third. And then something changed for Real, and it really was just that Luka Modric moment. He picked up the ball on the half turn, didn't even look. Wonderful ball, and then all of a sudden we're at least going to extra time. And on the subject of extra time, and I don't have an idea for this, but and I think it's so unfair at this when we get to the quarterfinals and the semi-finals of the Champions League or the UEFA or the Europa League or whatever, that the team playing the second leg at home, if it goes to extra time, they get an extra 30 minutes at home because they didn't earn that extra 30 minutes at home. It's not like in the round of 16 where one team finished top of the group and the other team finished second. So therefore, that's why you get the second leg at home. When you get to the quarters and the semis, you haven't earned the right to be at home second. It's just a draw. So, I don't know if there's a way of doing that, but it just doesn't sit right with me. I hate that. And going back to the away goals point, that was definitely one of the good things about away goals, because at least then if you scored a goal in that extra time period, then you got an away goal for it. But now I guess you've got a situation where there's no jeopardy. Well, there's no real jeopardy for the team playing at home because they can concede a goal but still come back in that extra time period, which they haven't really earned. But that's just something that sort of weighs on me. It doesn't quite sit right. But I thought in this game, just Chelsea really asserted themselves into this game the way they should have in the first one. Reece James playing as the third centre-back was the right matchup. Vinicius struggled way more in this game to get in behind him and get himself into position where he could get any delivery. Obviously, the goal that ultimately won it, but it came from a Chelsea mistake, so you're not going to blame Reece James for that. I thought Marcus Alonso was good. He probably should have started the first leg as well because I didn't make that point at the time, but I thought it was Azpilicueta as a left wing back doesn't really give you width. He's already a right footer and he's not a good attacking player. So why is he the player you're giving? I mean, Valverde could have been sipping on a beer at the right wing back position at Stamford Bridge. He had nothing to do. Azpilicueta doesn't frighten anyone when he goes forward. So being able to bring in Marcus Alonso, who is as far as wing backs go, he's a really good wing back, one of the top in the world. He just struggles when he has to play as in a back four. And I've spoken about this time after time how different defenders are made for either back fives or back fours, and he's definitely one made for a back five. And then we saw the partnership between Timo Werner and Mason Mount continue from the weekend, and those guys look like they're clicking now. And Werner, for the first time, looks like a player who might be Chelsea quality. I mean, and I hope he is because I think he's a really good player. But he hasn't shown it since he's been at Chelsea. So it was good for him to get the goal-ahead goal. Obviously, it wasn't enough in the end, unfortunately for Chelsea. But and then another thing I just wanted to touch on was Ruben Loftus-Cheek's selection and positioning as a right wing back was really interesting in this game because he's not a player I link with being a traditional wing back. He's not one to hold the width. He's not one who's sort of this up and down player. He's not a box to box. He's more of a, I don't know, just the way he's built. He's bigger than a player who plays there. You know, he's a bit more powerful in the movement, and he doesn't really drive that ball in those areas, go in the one-on-one situations as a wing back. So what you found in the first half a lot, he was coming infield a lot, and Chelsea really wanted to make sure they had the numerical superiority in the midfield. I thought they might go another way, and I thought they might just trust Kante and Kovacic as it was in that game. Who Kovacic was excellent, but I thought they might just trust those two to go against Real Madrid's three, given that they're a bit older, and I think they could have gotten away with just going 2-on-3 in there in terms of physicality and legs, and then maybe double up on the wide areas where I thought Real Madrid had a weakness at fullback. But he wanted the numerical superiority in the middle. Mount was coming infield and drifting a lot. Werner was actually drifting off the front line a lot, and then obviously when you got Havertz as a third forward, he likes to drift. They wanted to get him out on the right wing and get that matchup. Actually, I don't know why, but against Alaba, because they wanted to drag Mendy out with Ruben Loftus-Cheek, who didn't get as high as I just spoke about, because he's not that natural wing back. But it worked because they were able to kill Real in the midfield. They were keeping the ball. They were letting players get forward. So I walk away from the two legs. I still think Chelsea are probably, after the week we've just seen them had, they're still probably the third best team in Europe. But they're out, and Real are still in. Real, as litigated last week, I think have weaknesses, and I really think I'm stronger now in the position that City should get through them.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. Like, Chelsea definitely showed that they dropped the ball in the first game. Like, tactically, Tuchel got it wrong, and unfortunately for them, it meant the end of their run in the Champions League. But look, Real go on, and they prove that it's within their DNA to run deep in these competitions. And against City, that's definitely going to be an interesting matchup, and I think Ferdinand said that Real are going to really struggle against City, because Real aren't the team to sit back in a low block and they will try to challenge City. And Real showed that they, at moments where they tried to sit back against Chelsea, and Chelsea were opening them up in this game. So, and I don't think they necessarily have it in them to sit back in a low block and play on the counter the way that, for instance, Atletico do. So I think that Man City should have their way with them.
See, I'm actually going to disagree just because of what we saw in the first leg with Chelsea Real. And I know Chelsea got it wrong for me, matchup wise and tactically, and they could have played better anyway. But I thought Real in that showed a real prowess to counter attack, and when Benzema's on his game and he can link up the play, and when he's able to hold the ball or pick up the ball in the pockets and let Vinicius go in behind, I think that's really dangerous. But I also do think because Chelsea got the matchups wrong, I mean, going up against Christensen compared to Kyle Walker is a totally different prospect. City, what they're so great at is containing the play and making sure that the play is all in your half, and very hard to get out. They're actually a very cautious team, City, and I don't know if people yet link that to Pep Guardiola teams, but Pep Guardiola teams are very cautious. I mean, he does it in a untraditional way in terms of it's keeping the ball and it's keeping territory, but the maniacal nature of how he wants to keep the ball and he wants to keep territory leads his teams to be very cautious. So this season they're not really getting those fullbacks into advanced areas, which is great for him because now Kyle Walker, all he has to do is when we have the ball, can I distribute it? If I'm in a position to cross, I've still got a decent cross or shoot. But in terms of when we have the ball, I'm not overlapping. I'm staying here and I'm using my pace so that if they put the ball in behind, I'm going to chase it rather than I'm going to use my pace to overlap. And it's much the same with João Cancelo, who is much more of a playmaker from the other side. But he's still, if he's playing at left back, he's not overlapping because they want him coming infield onto his right foot. So he's more of a central midfielder in this. And obviously, that means he's not going forward as much. So any breakdown in possession, you've got his natural defensive capabilities ready to contain or ready to run with someone in behind. So I think that's the blueprint. Benzema needs to be on top form. I think, and it's no surprise to say that I'm not breaking any ground with that. But that's the only chance I give Real. Benzema on top form, and then his running mates in Vinicius and Modric. Because this, if you want to use a basketball terminology, this Real Madrid team definitely has a big three, and they're the big three. They're the guys who are offensively carrying them to this point, and obviously Benzema, but every step of the way he's had Modric and Vinicius coming with him. So those three really need to be clicking and really need to play well in those moments where City counter press. Otherwise, I just see City steamrolling him. Like you said, I do agree with that. So I think now we're talking about City so much. Obviously, they're through to the next round. 1-0 overall, 0-0 at the Wanda. Nev, I know you watched this game too. What did you see when you watched this game?
Why couldn't Atletico play like this in the first leg? They came out more aggressive. They came out with more intent, and they pinned City back for the majority of the 90 minutes. Like they made, the first half was a little bit more in City's favour, but the second half, I think Atletico definitely had them rattled, but they just could not finish the 2 or 3 chances or half chances that they had. But other than that, I think that City showed that they can also defend, and it was a little bit funny that that City played. They didn't play similar to Atletico, but they definitely gave them a little bit of their own medicine. It felt like where they started using a little bit of those time-wasting tactics. They were happy to defend rather than push forward and commit numbers forward. And it also showed at the end of the game, I think the Atleti president even complained that Man City defended. So it was a little bit ironic how that all went. Obviously, at the end, the game ended a little bit sour with the whole Savage incident, and it was a Felipe as well. And like Felipe is an absolute idiot for trying to lash out. Like there's so many cameras around the pitch. I don't get why players kick out after a foul. Like it's so stupid. Like he literally threw his team under the bus by doing that. Like you're already on a yellow and you go and do that crap. Like he's an absolute idiot for doing that. And then Savage should have got a straight red as well for headbutting Sterling. I can't believe VAR didn't pick up on that. So he was more than happy to get a yellow for what he did. But yeah, like it ended pretty sour, but Man City showed that they have that composure to give back what they got, and it's good to see us that side to City as well. They don't have just that. They don't have just that like possession tiki taka football. Like they also have that sort of that hardness to them, and that composure to them. So yeah, like it was definitely an interesting game to watch. It wasn't really exciting in the sense that there was goals flying in from every which direction, like there was in the other, like in the Chelsea game and also in the Liverpool game. But from one perspective, it was an interesting affair.
Definitely. I think when you get two teams of that quality and such contrasting perceived styles, it's always going to be an interesting affair. Funnily enough, I didn't actually see the Savage headbutt, and I watched the game, so maybe I wasn't paying attention for that particular bit. But I know when he went over and manhandled Foden and started that whole thing, I actually thought Foden was in the wrong for that. I can't stand it when players want to fake their injury and they're off the pitch and then they do everything just to roll back onto the pitch. I thought it was completely right to go over and try and shove him off the pitch there, because I would have been really annoyed, especially when you're trying to chase a game with crap like that going on. But we know about Atletico. I think all in all, Guardiola probably wouldn't have wanted to see Foden get involved with that, but he kept his head just about. And the rest of the City team dealt with whatever Atletico threw at him just fine. Foden did for the most part. He never lost his head, but he just wanted to get involved with the instigation, give a little bit back. So whatever, that is what it is. He wanted to prove a point. I think he's that kind of guy that if he's not going to take that lying down. And at the end of the day, Atletico are out now. And look, for me, you say why couldn't they have played both legs? And I somewhat agree. I think in this game they did have Griezmann dropping into that right hand side. I think to make a 5-4-1 a lot because I think they were scared of Cancelo. But I preferred Atletico's shape wherever they were playing, just a straight 5-3-2. I wanted Griezmann and João Felix to be one-on-one with the centre backs because I thought that was where the weakness for City was. I didn't want them going up against Cancelo or Walker because I thought they'd lose that battle every time. Whereas if you can get Griezmann and Felix up against Stones and Laporte, I think they got a good chance of winning that battle. So I would have preferred to see Atletico go more of in both legs a 5-3-2. And just try to expose channels down the side. I know I've just talked about how City, especially in recent years, they've really clogged up those channels down the sides of the centre backs. But I mean, they're still going to appear in the game, so I think it would have probably been a better tactic if you wanted to go more attacking to try and expose the centre backs. But again, given that we saw in the first leg that Simeone didn't want to go attacking at all. He should have just stuck to his guns in that first leg because at the end of the day, one goal is all that it was to decide it. And then if that goal never happens, who knows? We're going to extra time, penalties, lottery. maybe Atletico are going through. So I thought, just given that he never showed an inkling to attack in the first leg, I don't know why he changed it somewhat in the second half, and that goal proves crucial. They had chances. It was exciting to see the chances at the end, but I think the right team obviously went through. Probably the best team in Europe at the moment. To be able to show that they can do it this way as well as the other way, the way they normally do it, just speaks to just how good this City team is. And it's got to be fun to watch another contrast of styles with them against Real Madrid in the semi-final.
Yeah, I think you're right that I think like everyone can agree that the better team went through, and from a neutral's perspective who wants to watch more entertaining football, then definitely the right team went through.
And speaking of the right team going through, I want to get your reaction on Villarreal making yet another Champions League semi-finals 16 years after the last. What was your reaction to seeing that they went through against the German powerhouse that is Bayern Munich?
Well, I think I got that one completely wrong. So my first reaction was, "Holy crap!" Like, can't believe I predicted like an absolute drubbing by Bayern. But they, at the start of the season, they were like dominating teams, but over the last, I guess, couple of weeks, they've sort of been a little bit blunt. And it's funny, like when I was making that prediction during our last podcast, I quickly had a look in the background at the result from the weekend in Bundesliga, and I think they beat they beat Freiburg or some they beat some team like at home 1-0. And when I saw that, and I was talking while I was looking at that result, and I still stuck with the narrative of the drubbing, but I saw it in the back of my mind. I was like, oh man, they can't even like show what Chelsea showed, for instance, of absolutely dominating a team 6-0 just before going into their UCL quarterfinal match. And yeah, they've seemed blunt over the last couple of weeks, it seems like, with all their results. And look, credit to Emery, like he won the Europa League last season. What a story it would be if he won the Champions League. Like, he gets fired from PSG, and while he was at PSG, look, I'll admit, I didn't like. I didn't think PSG played as a team, but you know what? After seeing PSG before, even after he left, PSG is the culture of the club just seems to be a culture of individuals and not playing as a team. Like, we've seen them play the exact same way and have the exact same breakdowns under Tuchel, under Emery. Ancelotti was there as well. Can't remember if there was one other notable coach there. But yeah, like they've had the exact same types of breakdowns. So Emery wasn't the problem. Tuchel wasn't the problem. And then Emery goes to Arsenal. He has a pretty good first year. Second year, obviously things start to go wrong. Goes to Villarreal, wins the Europa League, and now in the semi-finals. So, and I think even when he was he at Sevilla, and he won the Europa League there as well, or was that what was that event?
I think he won it. He won it. I'm pretty sure he won it 3 times in a row.
Yeah, exactly. So like from my personal, I guess, judgment, I don't think any coach can really be judged on their PSG career, because that club just seems like it's toxic, and that probably made me judge him. But yeah, like, he's definitely proving that he can build a solid team at Villarreal, and he's restoring his reputation that I guess Arsenal sort of destroyed, and PSG sort of not destroyed, but like tarnished. But yeah, like credit to Villarreal, like they're doing. They're obviously doing a fantastic job, and they're playing as a unit. So great result for them.
And before I get to the Yellow Submarine, and just I kind of want to put what they're doing in a little bit of context. So I've done not a deep dive, but sort of in between shallow and deep dive. So I'll go through that. But before I get to that, I want to talk about the Bayern side of this, because in all honesty, this is probably the last time that we're going to have a meaningful discussion about Bayern on the pod, because what are they playing for now? They're going to win the Bundesliga. They'll probably, I don't know if they're still in the German Cup, I'm not sure, but who really cares? So honestly, Bayern season is just going to come to that petering end where they pick up their obligatory league title, and that's it for them. And in all honesty, I don't think they deserve more. I thought, look, football's funny. I can throw up these results on territory, watching the match, on possession, that they no doubt should have done enough to go through. I mean, because Villarreal, and we knew they'd do this, and it's actually funny how Spanish sides are having their greatest success now in this year's competition, playing more defensive without the ball. But we knew Villarreal would do this and give Bayern the ball. But what I saw, and I watched the first 20 minutes of this game, and I was making notes as though I thought Villarreal were going to win it. And I didn't know the result going into it. I was watching it, and I watched the first 20 minutes. I'm like, I think Villarreal they're going to score one goal. It's going to be enough, because you use the perfect word for Bayern when you say it, blunt. They are blunt. They're a blunt instrument. There's no incision. There's no sharpness. It kind of looks like maybe a Simone Inzaghi type deal at Inter, but obviously more offensive than that, where Nagelsmann just wants to put the players in the position, but it doesn't look like they're really refined in their movements and their play to cut open an opponent. So what he did, he played a 3-1, and then it was basically 6, because it wasn't wing backs, it was wingers, and then it was 2 up front, and then it was 2 playing off them. So he just had Kimmich sitting in front of the back 3, and obviously you could somewhat do that against Villarreal, but what was really glaring was when the ball changed hands, the counter press was non-existent from Bob. And I don't understand how you can think it would be existent, because in this new system, he has Coman and he has Sane playing as the wide players, as the wingers. So if the ball changes hands in the middle of the pitch, now you're asking Lewandowski and Muller to be the first 2 in the counter press. And while Lewandowski's a freak and he's physically so fit for his age, he still is into his 30s. And Muller's well into his 30s, and he's never been a physical freak. So that counter press was really lacking. And in the moments where Villarreal wanted to play, they could play quite comfortably. Parejo could get on the ball a lot. Capoue could get on the ball a lot in that midfield. And it was quite easy for them to play through. Now, they committed so many men to defending that they could play through, but they couldn't necessarily get forward every time. But watching the first 20 minutes, you knew that was the pattern of the game. So it's like, after 20 minutes, you're thinking, well, Bayern don't look very threatening. Villarreal look comfortable defensively, and then if they want to play, they can at least get into positions where they can deliver a ball forward. It's not going to work every time, but they only need it to work once. And it did. In the 88th minute, I thought Bayern's balance was all off. It's off all season, and that brings me to the next point that I want to make. And then they got played through, and the goal comes, and I thought, you know what? I thought it was one of those cases where I wouldn't argue if Bayern got through, because they are in all regards sort of the better team over Villarreal. But it was also a case where I didn't think they did enough. I wasn't convinced by them. I wasn't impressed by them. I wouldn't argue that Villarreal have gone through either. And obviously, being a Liverpool fan now, we're not playing Bayern in the semi, but when you get to the semis of the Champions League, I want to play the best teams. I don't want to. As a football fan, I wanted to see Bayern go through. A Liverpool Bayern tie would have been something else to watch. But like you say, credit to Villarreal. And the other point I wanted to touch on the Bayern perspective is something that really, really annoys me. And I think he's a really good player, so I want to preface everything by saying that. But the fact that Joshua Kimmich doesn't play right back because he'd prefer to play central midfield really annoys me. Because when he's on his game, he's in the discussion for the best right back in the world when he plays there. When he plays central midfield or holding midfielder, he's just another another good central or holding midfielder. I'm not saying he's bad in that position, but he's functional. He doesn't do anything exceptional for me. He reads the play well. He's not as good as Philipp Lahm was when he went into central midfield. I don't want to say that. I think Lahm was more intelligent. Kimmich can get around the pitch a little bit better, but he's not exceptional in terms of his speed or his covering pace. I just think when he plays as that right back and then in possession he comes into central areas and plays as a central midfield, but in terms of out of possession he gives you more solidity so that now you've got a back four and he gives you sort of what City want to do with Cancelo. I think that's a much better role for him because when he plays in that position, he is on Cancelo's level. But when he plays in the middle of the park, I'm not convinced. For a club of Bayern's stature, I'm not saying he's bad, he's good, but for a club with Bayern's aspirations, he's not good enough for me. And this season, I would say he had to play in that role, but that's because for years now, he's been saying he wants to play central midfield, and he gets to play central midfield. So Bayern don't look to go out and buy another either holding midfielder or central midfielder. Whereas I think they should have been getting reinforcements at that position, and Kimmich should be used as a stopgap when they need rotating or when there's injuries. But for me, he should be a right back.
Look, I've seen you may have seen more games of him than me, but like the games that I've seen where he's played central midfield for Bayern and even for Germany, I thought he's looked very good, but I probably haven't seen him enough at right back to really judge. But look, from my perspective, from the games that I've seen, I thought he's a decent central midfielder. He probably does need some backup alongside him. But I think that overall, look, I didn't get to watch the game in full, but look, Bayern, like I said, and like you said, Bayern have looked very blunt over the last couple of weeks, and yeah, they just couldn't break down Villarreal. So it's unfortunate that we don't get to see Bayern Liverpool, but based on how things panned out, I'm not sure I would have wanted to probably see Bayern Liverpool because Bayern have looked so stale, so blunt, that we might not have got the mouth-watering tie that we were expecting. So I think this one will be more of a tactical battle. It might be similar to the Benfica Liverpool tie, but Villarreal probably just more solid at the back and will probably close up shop a lot better than what Benfica have against Liverpool.
Yeah, and we'll discuss that tie maybe when we talk about Liverpool. I just wanted to touch on the accomplishment of Villarreal, and I'm sure you and everyone's heard the stat about the population of Villarreal. Just over 50,000 is the population in the whole city, and so obviously that led me to do some research on good old Wiki. There's only two other clubs who have had sub 100,000 populations for the city or the town and made it this far in either the European Cup or the Champions League. You can probably get one of them. If I told you to think of 03, 04 and 16, 17, could you tell me the one with the lowest population who's made it to the semi-finals or later of this stage of the competition?
Since you said 03 or 04, I'm gonna guess Monaco.
Yeah, Monaco. Smallest population to make it this far in the competition. I think they're just around 35,000. And to find the other one of under 100,000, you have to go all the way back to the 1968-1969 season, where a Slovakian side named Spartak Trnava, and I apologize to all the Slovakian listeners that we may have for absolutely butchering the name of that city, but they only have a population of just over 60,000, and they made it to the semi-finals in 1969. So, but as far as my research came up, that's the only three places with a population of less than 100,000 to make it this far in the competition. And then I wanted to do um, a bit more of a recent sort of dive into it, and so I was focusing just on the Champions League as it's currently formatted, so the 03-04 season on, and I wanted to look at surprise semi-finalists. So in the 03-04 season, you actually had three surprise semi-finalists in Porto, Monaco, and Deportivo La Coruña. Um, and in terms of upsets, I'd probably I mean, Monaco had to go through a round of 16 tie against Real Madrid, but that was an unbalanced Real Madrid side with the aging Zidane and Figo still there and Ronaldo still there. So they weren't at their peak of their powers. But Deportivo La Coruña had to come through um, reigning champions AC Milan in the quarterfinals, and they were actually 4-1 down from the first leg. So last week you were talking about we've seen teams come back. Well, Deportivo won the second leg 4-0 against the reigning champions with the defence that AC Milan had at the time. One of the all-time great shocks in European Cup or Champions League history. Uh, 05, I guess you had Liverpool and PSV, but they didn't really. Liverpool came through. Liverpool really had no right to win that title, that Champions League title. So I put them as a surprise one. But a club of Liverpool's size, I mean, you really can't be too surprised when they do something like that. 06, you had Arsenal and Villarreal. Again, Arsenal, a club of that size, you can't be too surprised. But at the time, they were fighting just to get into the top four in the Premier League. It looks like Tottenham had it all season, but the mysterious food poisoning before Tottenham's game at West Ham took out half the team and pretty much gift wrapped the spot for Arsenal. So it ended up it didn't matter that they didn't win that. That Villarreal team uh, came through Inter at the time. Inter were a good team, but always second best to Juve. And they sort of flattered to deceive in Europe at that time. But if you look at the team on paper, and I know um, those of us who are about our age playing winning 11 and going into on around 06, that was a frightening team with Adriano and Martins up front. That was good fun. Lyon in 2010, I mean, they came through that Ronaldo's first season Real Madrid team in the round of 16. Pellegrini's only season, I think, at Real Madrid. So that's an upset, but that came in the round of 16, not the semis. Schalke in 2013. Uh, I thought they were unworthy of being in the semi-finals. They didn't really have to come through any great teams. They went through in 2011. Sorry, they came through Inter, who were defending champions. But if you remember, Inter had changed from Mourinho to Benitez, and then they had to get rid of Benitez. So by the time this game rolled around, they had Leonardo in charge, and that team just were never as convincing as when they won it under Mourinho this season before. Dortmund in 2013, and funnily enough, that could have been Malaga under Pellegrini. Because if you remember that quarter final that Dortmund came through, I believe they were on the brink of elimination, down 2-1 at home against Malaga, and they had to score two in added time, and they did it to get through what was a wild quarter final and make it all the way to the final. Atletico in 14, not too surprising. I mean, Simeone was already there. They were winning the league title that season, so uh, not really crazy surprise there. Monaco again did it in 70, but you look at that team on paper. I know it was young at the time, but that team was exceptional. Bernardo Silva, Kylian Mbappe. I think João Coutinho was still there at the time. Just a really good team. Fell to Juve in that semi-final. Then Roma pulled off a shock in the quarter-final in 2018 down. I believe they were down 4-1 from the first leg against Barcelona and then won the home leg 3-0. And then the next season, you had Spurs and Ajax made it all the way to this. Well, Spurs made it to the final, Ajax to the semis. Ajax had a good run. They had to knock off Real Madrid and Juventus to get there. Spurs obviously had to knock off City in that dramatic quarterfinal. So upsets, but again, Spurs is a club in London. That's a pretty big club. And Ajax, we know about their pedigree in the competition. And then 2020, the weird sort of bubble year. You had Leipzig and Lyon get to the semis, obviously only one-legged affairs. Lyon obviously beat Man City, and that's now why we call Pep Guardiola an overthinker, or it's one of the reasons for that quarterfinal loss to Lyon. So yeah, Villarreal add their name, well, yet again to that list because they already did it in 06. But I guess where would you rank in terms of those shocks that we've seen in the quarterfinals of the recent past? Where would you rank Villarreal getting over Bayern this year?
It's a tough one to really say because we're obviously judging, like, it's hard to judge, I guess, like past performances because we sort of look at it from a sentimental value as well. Like maybe in like 5 or 10 years time we can look back and say, all right, this was a truly exceptional performance. But it's definitely up there. Like I wouldn't say it's necessarily up there with like the Monaco Porto one in 2003 2004, but it's probably up there. Like depending on if they get to the final, then yeah, I'll probably start to put it closer up there with Monaco Porto. But semis, like we've already seen like a bunch of these slightly lesser or not as big clubs make it to quarterfinals, make it to semis. So it's not like it's a regular occurrence, but it happens every like 2 or 3 or 4 years. So it's where you get at least like one team make it there. But yeah, like look, if they make it to the final, then and then if they actually win the final, then it's probably going to go up there alongside the Porto result, because I think Porto also won the Europa League, or was the UEFA Cup the year prior to winning the Champions League. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if they
and that Porto team that won the Champions League that year beat Man United in the quarterfinals, and I'm sure we all remember Jose Mourinho running down the touchline to go and celebrate that last minute goal.
But yeah, look, if Villarreal win the entire thing, it's going to go up there with the Porto one, especially considering, and I think they also qualified based on the fact that they won the Europa League, not that they finished top 4. Is that correct? Last year in La Liga?
Yeah, no, we touched on that last pod, how they had that experience of going deep into the competitions. Yeah.
So Liverpool better watch out, man.
Yeah, definitely. And you're right. If they get into the final, it's a new stratosphere because only Monaco, in terms of the population stat, have made it to the final. That's that 03-04 season. In terms of quarterfinal upsets from recent history, I have to still go with Deportivo La Coruña turning around a 4-1 deficit against the reigning champions Milan in that 03-04 season that saw so many upsets apparently. But I got to go with that. And then this would actually be second, and then probably Roma in 2018 over Barca. But that's the size and the context of what Villarreal have just accomplished against this Bayern team, albeit a Bayern team that I know I've been a little bit negative on in recent weeks, and but still a fantastic accomplishment when you look at the size of the clubs. So, as we keep saying, fair play to Villarreal, and as you just said, Liverpool will need to watch out because you don't get to the semi-finals of the Champions League by absolute fluke. I mean, out of all those shocks that I just mentioned, only Schalke was the one that I thought was not very deserving of being in a semi-final of the Champions League. But it's still two knockout rounds and a group stage you've got to come through. So you've got to have done something right. And looking at the Liverpool Benfica game, and you don't need to go too in depth with it, but just a few things that I wanted to point out was, I wasn't happy with Klopp's lineup. just because he got away with it in the end. But I don't think that's a good. It's almost putting a target on your back for the footballing gods. It's only 3-1. This is the second leg of the quarterfinals of the Champions League. We're not playing. We're not playing the League Cup. We're not playing the early rounds of the FA Cup. This is the big prize. So if you're making it to the last 8 of the Champions League, you're playing teams who can beat you by more than 2 goals, even if you are at Anfield. So I thought it was ultra dangerous to pick a pretty much 75% second string team. I thought it was really dangerous because if Benfica come out and they blitz the first 20 minutes and they're one, maybe even 2 goals up, what then? I mean, I just think that's just putting a target on your back. You don't need it. If the tie's not 4-0 or more, it's not over. So I thought it was really risky for him to go. I get why he felt he needed to because they're still challenging on all fronts and they've got away with it. So at the end of the day, it's the best result you could have got. But they have copped 3 goals at home. Again, in the knockout stage, they haven't won a game because obviously they lost to Inter in the last round, and now they drew 3-all. And honestly, Allison had to make a huge save in this game because there was Liverpool were playing their stupid high line, and they weren't playing it with any gusto. I mean, it looked more lazy than by design. And they copped 2 goals, 2 stupid goals for playing that. And then all of a sudden the game's 3-3, and I think there was still like 10 minutes left. And then the next attack, Benfica have Darwin Nunez volleys it from the sky. And Allison has to get down real smart to his right hand post to save that. And if he scores that, then all of a sudden one more goal and we're going to extra time. I mean, which brings me to my next point about Liverpool. This is not, and Klopp always loves saying, I can't remember if he said, I'm pretty sure he says giants, but he always calls Liverpool, or he always used to call Liverpool mentality giants. This team isn't the mentality giants of a few seasons before. And I think their quality in a footballing sense and in the sense of being able to create chances and score goals has gone up a lot since that 18-19 season, and even the 19-20 season. But the mentality and the hunger which you can expect, because now these players have won everything in the game as a group, but the mentality and the hunger isn't the same as back then. So I think it's sort of a trade-off. We've got more quality to create and score chances, but I mean, you just have to look at the last 2 second legs in the Champions League to see that mentality is just a few percent off. But ultimately, they get away with it because they had enough of a lead in the first leg. I just thought it was super risky.
Look, I don't watch. I didn't watch the game. Like I only saw the highlights of it. I did, and with the previous game, I did. I did sort of like it was the game was playing in the corner of my eye as I was watching the Atletico Man City game, and you obviously watch a lot more of Liverpool than I do. But from what I've seen of them over the last couple of weeks and the results that they've been getting, they're showing they're not showing that same solidity at the back that that they were 2 or 3 seasons ago, where where Van Dijk was like just a wall. They seem very leaky, and for me as a neutral, it's a little bit worrying seeing that going into the tail end of the season. Like that your team is shipping so many goals, and in the first leg, from the chances that I saw, Benfica could have had 2 or 3 goals like that could have that could have easily finished like maybe 3-2 or 3-3 or 4-3 or something like that. Like it had more goal. It looked like it had more goals in it from what I saw. So yeah, if you guys don't and considering how Villarreal like to play on the counter, and it might be a little bit worrying for you guys. I'm not sure how you feel about it, since you watch them a lot more. But as a neutral that watches Liverpool here and there, like watching them against City last weekend, and seeing that like them in a limited space of the last couple of weeks, I'd be a little bit worried about that.
More frustrated than I am worried. Because at the end of the day, I put Liverpool as either 1A or 1B in terms of the best teams in the world. So there's no need to worry about any other team. So I'm not worried, but I am frustrated because I think they can do a little bit better in shoring up games and situations. So that's why I just wanted to touch on those points from a semi or from the quarter that was all but wrapped up from the first leg, but still Liverpool's still tempting fate with not putting in the best performances and not being solid defensively. So yeah, I wouldn't use the word worried, but I definitely get why you think I would be concerned in that way, and I'm frustrated watching it, but not worried for that reason that I said. And I think now we can move away from the quarterfinals of the Champions League and just briefly touch on the quarterfinals of the Europa League. So now we have set up for the semis. We have Leipzig against Rangers and incredibly Frankfurt against West Ham. Barcelona no more. Disappointing because now they really don't have much to play for. They might. We'll touch on that in a little preview for the weekend, but Barcelona knocked out by Eintracht Frankfurt. I know you watched this game. So what were your feelings as you saw Barcelona tumble out at the quarterfinal stage of this competition?
It looks similar to the way Arsenal have been playing over the last 2-3 weeks, where they can keep sort of possession, but it's of the ball in moments and create a chance or two. But as soon as a team decides to press them and to play on the front foot against them, they get a little bit shell shocked. So, and yeah, Frankfurt were just all over them from minute one. Eric Garcia with why did, especially with the amount of cameras and with VAR right now, why are players holding on to players inside the box? Why are you doing this? And he had it's not like he had his arms sort of just open and sort of shutting off space from him going around. He had him wrapped around over his shoulders, to drag the player down. Why are you defending like that? Just being an idiot. And that's in minute 2 as well. I don't get why players defend like that now. Is it just because because VAR is 2 or 3 years old and maybe you could get away with it 2 or 3 years ago, you actually could have gotten away with it, and they still haven't gotten that out of their system, that way of defending? Or is it just because they panicked or what? I don't understand how you can do that. And actually the referee didn't even need VAR. He saw it himself. That's the other thing. You didn't even need VAR for that one. But yeah, Frankfurt were just they played tremendous, and with intent, with ferocity, with energy, and yeah, they just had Barcelona pinned. And I we touched on a couple of times, Barcelona seems to be in a similar sort of rebuilding process that Arsenal are in, and they also seem to have a similar mentality that Arsenal are in, where but that's probably also down to the amount of young players that they have in their team, and I guess the lack of experience. So, look, at the end of the day, the better team went through, and 100% credit to Frankfurt. They actually played like a team that I would enjoy watching, at least based on this one game. I didn't watch the first leg, but based on this game, they actually look like a decent team, to be honest.
Yeah, and I wouldn't go as far as saying the better team got through, but probably on the balance of the 2 legs, that is the case. But in terms of overall team, I mean, you look at what they're doing in the league, and there's no doubt for me Barcelona are a better team than Eintracht. But you hit it on the head in terms of we got to watch a team go at Barcelona, and in particular go at them physically. They made the game very vertical. They didn't stretch it, but they weren't afraid to stretch it in moments. They weren't afraid to make it an up and down game because they trusted that their physicality would overrun Barcelona. And it indeed did. And Barcelona, you're right, didn't look comfortable at all. They couldn't dictate the game in the normal ways that they do in terms of territory and possession. And the game almost, not quite to this level, but it almost looked like a Liverpool game in terms of the way it went back and forth. And it suited Eintracht to the ground because they were, without doubt, the more physical team. And it was more in their interest to play that way. And Barca probably, like you say, due to maybe the inexperience, really struggled to stamp their authority on the game. And ultimately, that's why they're going out. And I guess fortunately, but unfortunately for West Ham, because now they don't get to play Barcelona, which would have been an absolute showpiece event. The London Stadium would have been rocking for that one. I mean, it'll still be rocking. This is Europa League semi-final that they're in now, and they just dispatched of Leon. Leon have some good players, to be fair, but man, the way Leon just let go of the rope after surprise conceding from a West Ham set piece. I mean, it's well famed how good Kevin Nolan in the coaching staff is at setting up West Ham for set pieces. Craig Dawson's a beast at set pieces, and they get their one goal, and Leon just let go of them. I mean, from that point, they were at home, and they really should have mounted some sort of fight back, but never looks like coming. Goals either side of the half, and it was really comfortable for West Ham in the end. The other quarterfinals that saw Leipzig and Rangers go through, I thought were, well, I mean, I didn't watch the whole games, but I watched the mini matches, and they were quite fascinating to see. I mean, Leipzig. What can we say about Christopher and Cuckoo? I mean, he's up to 30 goals for the season now. French international. I mean, you could look at him and Benzema him and Mbappe on either side of Benzema to really just scare the life out of defenses in that World Cup because he looks like a true star and he looks like he's not going to be staying at Leipzig for very much longer because he's that good. And I mean, I talked little bit about Leipzig when they beat Dortmund, I think a couple of weeks ago, but and I said I wasn't too impressed with them. I've probably got to readjust that a bit because I think they have really good attacking players. I mean, obviously, Nkunku is one, but Andre Silva's a good player. Danny Olmo, Forsberg can come off the bench. Dominic Soboslai can come off the bench as well. So for them, it's Tedesco's got them playing in a way where they're solid and then they can counter, and the counter is something really good to watch. And for me, I would probably put them as favourites against Rangers, but Rangers, as we saw from this tie this morning, they have the Ibrox factor. I mean, that place is really going to be rocking for a Europa League semi-final. 50,000. I don't know what's in the air in Glasgow, but for big games, their crowds just go mental. They get insane for these games. They got a bit fortunate with getting a penalty and a Braga player sent off in the same action, which really helped them. But still, Braga had enough to take it to extra time. So, in terms of football and quality, I think Rangers have some good players. I really like the left-footed defender Bassi at the back, could play left back or centre back. He looks really good. Joe Aribo, just behind the strikers, looks good. They got the experience of Aaron Ramsey in there. Ryan Kent, old Liverpool player, looks quite good on the wing. So they're a good team, but I'd have to put Leipzig as favourites, and it's probably because Leipzig probably have the best player in the competition left in Nkunku. So, and they're playing some really good stuff. So I think they'll probably meet. I can't pick between Frankfurt and West Ham. I think that will be a good tie. And yeah, when you get up to this stage of the Europa League, I think it's quite interesting. So just wanted to touch on that. I don't know if you have any strong feelings either way for what we'll see in the rest of the Europa League or what we've seen.
Well, we won't have a Spanish team winning it for once.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. But it's definitely interesting because I heard yesterday that so with the reformatting of the Champions League, I think there was going to be an automatic spot to a Scottish club, and now with Rangers, I think they've fallen off a little bit in the title race. It looks like they won't they might not get that automatic spot. So this might be their only chance to get into the Champions League for the next season. And then obviously West Ham as well. They're falling off that top four. So this is going to be their only chance to get into the Champions League for next season.
Everyone except Leipzig.
Yeah.
Really.
So they all have Champions
and Leipzig
League.
Is still fighting.
Yeah. So it's in terms of like playing, like it's not just another cup competition. It's a cup competition plus Champions League spot as well, plus that $30-40 million for playing in the Champions League for your club and the prestige of playing in the Champions League. So it's, I think all four teams, like they definitely have extra motivation. Whereas like, look, and this is me just like speculating, like had Barcelona have gone through, because they have that history of always playing in the Champions League and they're sitting pretty well in second at the moment. Yes, they want to win the cup, but it probably doesn't mean as much to them as these teams. So from that perspective, like we should get some like really good ties and like teams actually going at each other like full pelt. So I'm not sure which tie is more interesting actually, because like you mentioned, like the Ibrox is like an absolutely immense atmosphere, but then like after watching Frankfurt yesterday, like I'm really impressed by them, and like I think that could be an interesting tie with West Ham. Leipzig are also an exciting team, so I think I'm gonna definitely try and watch both these semi-finals if I can. But yeah, like it's as interesting as, to me from one perspective, is as interesting as the Champions League. To be honest.
Yeah, and I totally get that, especially after you put the jeopardy of getting into Champions League again for the next season. I mean, Champions League of Villarreal, because it doesn't look like they'll finish top four. But yeah, that's definitely another layer that makes it interesting. And I think that's a good segue into just a sort of mini preview for what's happening in the leagues around Europe. Premier League, I don't really have anything of note. Just be interested to see it's Arsenal against Southampton. So if Arsenal can't get a result there, I mean, that's probably top four over, because you've got to be beating Southampton the moment they're in at the moment. And then in La Liga is a little bit interesting this week. We have two really interesting games. We got Real Madrid against Sevilla, which is really the last chance for a title race, because Real Madrid need to lose a game soon, and this is the one that you look at and you can see, especially after the emotion of and going into extra time in midweek against Chelsea, you can definitely see them slipping up here against Sevilla, which will bring it back to 9 or leave it at 9 points and give Barca a chance with a game in hand to get that down even further. So we could, but it needs to happen now for me, because if they don't slip up against Sevilla, it's not going to happen this season. And the other interesting one is Betis against Sociedad in the race for the top four, because Atletico lost last weekend, and now at least they only have the qualification for the Champions League to focus on. But they've opened the door for Betis, so if Betis could get on a little run, and Sociedad, I think, are only 4 points behind them as well. I think it's 3 and 4 respectively. So that will be, you've almost got to think that there has to be a winner to come out of that game, and the winner will be the one to challenge Atletico for that fourth spot. I still think Atletico are too strong and will finish in fourth, but there's something interesting to watch in La Liga this weekend. And then the only other two games of note before we go into the showpiece, FA Cup semi-final. Serie A, we got Napoli against Roma. Roma looking to put themselves back into a position where they can challenge for top four again. They're, I think, 4 or 5 points behind Juve. So if they can beat Napoli and put a real dint in Napoli's title hopes, although you never know in Serie A, because the other two challengers for the title might end up losing, and who knows, we might even have Juve back in the race. That one's wide open. The quality's not quite there, but the race is definitely wide open there. So Jose Mourinho taking his team to to the San Paulo will be very interesting. And from the Bundesliga, Leipzig off the back of beating Atalanta in that second leg Europa League tie away from home, they have a trip to Leverkusen, third and fourth in the Bundesliga. I think Leipzig are 3 points clear in fourth. So if they can ride that momentum that they've got from the Europa League and maybe get a result over Leverkusen, then they can push themselves further and have a clearer gap in that top four. And then maybe one of those layers that we were talking about from the Europa League campaign maybe gets taken away because they feel comfortable in top four. But like I said, they got quality players in the front areas. So yes, just some interesting ties to look forward to from Europe. And probably the big one again, we get it again on back-to-back weekends, but we get City against Liverpool in the FA Cup semi-final, which has led us to want to do something a little bit fun. I mean, I know we talked about these two teams so much before, and before we do something fun, I got to say that that second leg against Atletico was actually a very costly leg for Man City because I'm pretty sure Walker's in a moon boot, I think I've read, and De Bruyne will be out for this game. And in terms of the Champions League, Cancelo got a late booking, which means he's out of the first leg of that tie against Real Madrid. So Man City all of a sudden have a few dilemmas. I think that will really play into Liverpool's hands. No De Bruyne and no Walker is massive for Liverpool, especially given that they got to somewhat rest players and come into this one. So from the match perspective and the preview, just wanted to mention that. But we wanted to make a Man City versus Liverpool combined 11, and we wanted to do it in a draft format and just go through and pick our 11 based on what's still left on the board. So I think this will be interesting. This could be a bit of fun. As the host, I've got to give you, and as the guest, I've got to give you the first pick of any players. We're not going in positions. We're just picking the players we value the most and putting together our 11s in whatever formation we want. So, Nev, you can have the honour of first pick.
Well, before we get into that, you're not going to mention anything about Chelsea Palace for the other FA Cup tie?
No, not really, unless you wanted to say something about it. But
I
don't know. I see Chelsea going through.
Yeah, look, Chelsea should go through. You would hope that they bounce back and they use this loss as motivation. But yep, I think it will be an interesting tie because Vieira I think he's got Palace playing like a pretty solid team, and they could pose some problems. But yeah, like I think it should definitely be interesting. And yeah, like you said, Chelsea are expected to go through, so it'll be interesting. But look, I'm gonna jump into who I'm gonna take for my combined Liverpool Man City 11. I think the most obvious. Oh man, this is so hard considering you put it into like that draft format. And then I know if I pick one play, it's all right. Screw it. I'm taking De Bruyne.
Yeah.
Because I'm hoping that I can get the team that I originally planned to get this. Because this morning you sort of, I thought that we're just going to like do a normal sort of combined 11, not this draft format, and I already had my team planned. So I'm hoping that I can still get my team, but I already know that I'm going to miss out on one of my players by picking De Bruyne. But yeah, I'm hoping for the rest of it to come into play. But yeah, I'm picking De Bruyne to kick things off.
And I had a feeling you would because the form he's in and the way he looks and the player he is, it's not quite a no-brainer. I still wouldn't have picked him first. He wasn't number one on my list, so I'm going with big Virgil van Dijk.
Ooh.
The absolute rock that you can build your whole team around. So Van Dijk is my first pick.
That is a nice pick. Let me get that down so I don't pick him. Well, then that leaves Mo Salah open for me to pick. So I'll take Salah.
Yeah, good pick. You're not put off by his form recently?
Look, are we basing this off form over the last month,
No, you're
month
just
and a half,
basically
or are we basing this?
it's everything.
Yeah,
It's a bit of form. It's a bit of what they've accomplished. It's how they've looked all season. It's everything.
yeah. Look, if we're gonna base this on every single player comes in with a red up arrow, this is like a Winning 11 Pro Evo reference. If every player comes in on a red up arrow,
Yeah.
I'm taking De Bruyne and Salah. And yeah, Van Dijk. It's a big loss for me, but I think these two are big losses for you just as much.
Yeah, definitely. They would have been very high on my list. But for my next player, and this is because I think we're a little low in options in at least one position. And my next player is going to be Bernardo Silva.
Ooh, he was actually going to be
So
part of my 11.
I couldn't have you having De Bruyne and Bernardo Silva because I think they're clearly the two strongest offensive midfielders. So I had to take one of them.
Yeah,
I've taken Silva.
he was actually going to be part of my 11.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm taking Foden.
Ooh, Phil.
Yeah,
Wow.
good
You
old
liked the
Philip.
bit of spice he showed at the Wanda.
Yeah, a little bit of shithousery. And he showed a
Okay.
little bit of maturity as well, with
Yeah.
that as well, a little bit of experience. So yeah.
Yeah, no, he's a great young talent. All right, next player. I am going to take João Cancelo.
Oh, damn it! That was one of my players.
Yeah, there's good options at fullback, but I had to take one now.
Yeah.
So I've taken João Cancelo, who's the beast.
I'm taking Walker. And I'm taking Walker
Yeah,
over Trent because I alluded to it, I think, on the last podcast where I don't see De Bruyne and Trent playing in the same team because they occupy the same forward spaces. So I'm also trying to, as much as I'm trying to pick the best 11, I'm also trying to pick the most functional 11 as well, and how they would play together. So that's why I'm picking Walker over Trent.
All right, I am going to pick. And did you just give away that you're not going to pick Trent at all?
Or maybe that was just my tactic so that you wouldn't pick. Because I could put him in a 5 in the midfield.
Yeah, you definitely could. I was thinking that as well. All right, this is A, because he's an exceptional player, but B, to screw with you a little bit. I'm going to pick Ruben Diaz. So I've taken clearly the best two centre backs from the best teams.
I should have picked him next instead of Walker. That's
I'm happy
screwed
with
me a
my
little
defense
bit.
outside.
Well, at least that opens up the centre backs. So my centre backs are a little bit weak then.
Yeah.
All right. Let me just write down Diaz for you. I'm going to pick. Now it's either I'm picking Fabinho. I'm picking Fabinho over Rodri as my holding mid. I think Fabinho just has that little bit extra. It's very close, but I think he just has a little bit more that I'd want.
Yeah, I probably would have gone with Fabinho just over Rodri, but that was one of the positions where I thought the two options were so good that I didn't need to pick it early. Because whoever I got as a reject, it didn't really matter. And yeah, but I probably would have just edged Fabinho over Rodri. Ooh, I haven't got any forwards yet. We know the goalkeepers are going to be, whoever you get as a reject is going to be a good choice.
Yeah.
So, forwards. All right, give me Diogo Jota.
Damn it! I wanted to pick it. I was actually going to pick him next.
Yeah, nah, I had to take him.
Who am I going to pick next? Let's have a look. This is actually tough. Like you've already picked your centre backs and your left back. So unless you're going to pick a third centre back and play with three at the back, then that's going to leave me short.
Could do that.
But
Could play Cancelo at right back.
You could put exactly, and then that means I need to take Robertson now, doesn't it? If you play him at right back.
Or Trent if you play him somewhere else.
Mm.
That's the beauty of Cancelo. Can play either side. So once I got him, I knew whoever you took, I'd be able to just adjust Cancelo.
Yeah. No, all right. I have to pick Robertson now.
Yeah, good pick.
Yeah.
That means my fullback pick is very easy unless you dupe me and you get Trent. Ooh. Okay. I am going to take Riyad Mahrez.
That's a good pick.
Yeah, I need another striker.
Or
forward.
I never would have picked him anyway, so that's essentially a free pick. The centre back position, it doesn't look like it's a big hurry for me. I should have took Diaz off the table earlier.
Yeah, you should have, I think.
Yeah, that sort of threw a spanner in the works for me, but at least it's no hurry at the moment. But I think I might. I think I'm going to fill in my forward line by taking Firmino, and he has shown a little bit of form over the last couple of weeks, so I think that's a good shout. I was going to take Jota to fill that number 9 role, but I'm taking Firmino. It's a shame that Aguero is left, otherwise I would have taken him.
Yeah, no, he has shown some form. He's looked quite good after I was a little bit out on his performances earlier in the season.
Yeah.
So your front three is completed, so I've got no rush there.
Or is it?
Okay, seeing as though I have no rush there, I am going to take Thiago Alcantara in central midfield.
Well, then I'm taking Mane.
Okay. How's he going to play? So Foden's in central midfield for you then?
Yep.
Very attacking. Wow.
That's fine.
All right. Fair enough. Oh, I need one more forward, but you're definitely not going to be able to put another forward in. Mane was definitely picking.
Yeah, I think that's the last one. I think that one brings that forward line together. That's the what's that? That's the 18-19 forward line that won you guys the title.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait, or was that 2020?
Oh.
20.
So that leaves me with
1920. That's when you won the title.
1920 won the Champions League. 18-19 and then next season.
Yeah. So that's that title winning forward line.
It's a good front three. It's older though. It is older.
That's fine.
So that leaves me with Sterling or Luis Diaz.
He's been
I don't know if Luis Diaz. Don't know if Diaz has shown enough.
Yeah.
Kick him over. But he has looked really good. Really, really good. Well, can I throw a spanner in the works somewhere? No, I don't think I can. All right, I am taking. Oh, I don't want to do it, but I'm taking him. I'm taking Sterling.
He's coming back to Anfield.
I know. Well, Luis Diaz hasn't been there enough. But when you have 100 Premier League goals and counting, it's hard to go against you. So I got to take Sterling.
Not taking Gabriel Jesus?
Yeah, I thought about that as well, but he hasn't played enough.
Yeah,
and I do like strikers, but
yeah,
Yeah, but I think Jota's a better choice even just as a striker.
Yeah, as like that 9 or even false 9. I think
Yeah.
he was going to be my choice over Firmino, but Firmino's a very good backup, and I think he will link up excellently with De Bruyne and Foden. I think he will. I think that would be I reckon those three would love playing together. Now,
Definitely.
that just pretty much leaves goalkeeper and centre backs for me. I'm pretty sure. So I'll take Stones, I suppose.
Oh, yuck! Oh, that's the first yuck
Hey,
pick of this whole thing.
he won man of the match against Atletico. So
Oh no, that's like every other pick has been like, oh, what a great player, what a great pick. That one's just got me a little bit like, ooh, John Stones. I mean, he was really good last season for City in the title winning side, so I shouldn't be too critical. But it must be the name. It just must be the reaction to the name.
Yeah, probably. But look, he won the man of the match, so
Yeah.
he's
All right, I don't think he could do anything clever there. All right, give me Trent. So Cancelo goes to left back. Trent right back. Two more picks.
I'll pick Laporte. I think he's the
Yeah,
only.
no, that's a good pick. I'm surprised you went Stones over Laporte. But it didn't matter.
I don't know why, but the name, like, he just eluded me. I'm not sure if he's been injured or not. Yeah, I don't know why. It just, yeah. Anyway, your pick, good sir.
Alisson Becker.
That's fine because I wanted Edison as well.
Oh, you wanted Edison. That's fair. Edison. I think they're pretty close. I just put Alisson as just a slightly better goalkeeper, but Edison has that superiority with his feet.
Yeah, it really depends how you want to play. I think it's not even like a 1% difference. It's probably like 0.5% difference in different aspects. But I think just because Edison is better with his feet, and because I'd like, if I was putting this team together, I'd obviously want them to play out from the back, and Edison has a much better delivery playing short or even playing long as well, and shot stopping abilities. It's pretty much on par with Becker, but Becker has shown more oopsies. I'm going to use that. he's shown more oopsies than Edison. Like, I think Becker has that in his locker a lot more. So yeah, that's why I don't want him.
So, and that was your last pick, Edison, and Rodri was my last pick in that holding midfield role.
All right, so you're obviously playing a 4-3-3 then.
4-3-3. So I got Alisson in goal, Trent at right back, Diaz, Van Dijk, Cancelo left back, Rodri holding, Thiago and Bernardo Silva just in front, Riyad Mahrez from the right, Sterling from the left, Jota through the middle.
I think my one's pretty obvious. Like Edison at the back, Walker right back, Stones and Laporte centre backs, Robertson left back, Fabinho holding, and Foden and De Bruyne in front of them. Firmino down the middle, Mane on the left, and Salah on the right. Look, like, it's obviously. Look, I'm going to say no bias, but I think my team is a little bit more superior just because I have the better front line and midfield. But you have the better. You have the better.
Your better front lines coming up against my better defense.
Exactly. Yeah, but I still think that my midfield's better.
I don't know if you have the better midfield. You have the more energetic midfield. So I think I could get overrun in there. But if I'm keeping possession of the ball, I could get Trent and Cancelo to help them play in possession. So we could control the ball. Because my fullbacks play better on the ball than your fullbacks.
Yeah,
Walker and Robertson.
But I still think that my three can hold the ball and win the ball back better.
Maybe, but you got to win it back off Cancelo and Trent. and Diaz and Van Dijk aren't terrible either with the ball, and they're so good defensively. My centre backs are like 1.5 times as good as your centre backs. That one is probably the biggest discrepancy between the teams, and then the forward line for your favour. So it would be really tough.
But I think Salah would have you know what would be super interesting, and like I guess we don't get insight into that. I'd love to see how Salah goes against Trent Alexander in training, because you know how like I've spoken over the last couple of weeks, like where Alexander Arnold's like shown defensive fragility. I'd love to see if like Mane and Salah just absolutely tear him to shreds. That would be interesting if they like get him during training.
Yeah, see, I'd be more worried if it was Salah up against Trent, but it will probably be Salah up against Cancelo, and I think that's a pretty fair fight.
Yeah, but I can always swap them around.
Yeah, you could, but then you're playing Salah on the left, and he's going towards his left foot. So I've already nearly won the battle just by making you do that.
Yeah, so he can't do that Iron Robin cut in on the left.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but yeah, it's really interesting that with these two teams, like it doesn't really matter with especially with a lot of these positions. It doesn't matter who you pick. The backup is just as good. Like
I think
Walker over Trent. I explained why I picked Walker, because I don't think I wouldn't want Trent and De Bruyne playing in the same team because they occupy the same spaces. But then like Cancelo and Robertson, they're very good options. And then we also touched on Rodri and Fabinho. Like it doesn't matter which one of those you get. Edison and Becker, it doesn't matter which one of those you get as well.
Yeah, and you sort of felt it when you were doing the draft, because there was positions where you could go, like goalkeeper, for example. I'm not too fussed about that because both goalkeepers are exceptional.
Yeah.
And fullback, like you point out, and holding midfield, and even in the forward areas. But I think the two centre backs are like the top two are way superior to the next tier. And I think Salah is probably just like a little bit better than every other forward that you can pick. So you get, and De Bruyne in midfield as well. But Bernardo Silva's really good as well in that sort of same role. So I don't know. It's just like you said. It's great backup all around.
Yeah, it's interesting that you didn't pick Henderson in yours.
Hendo's in terrible form at the moment, and like he was already a fairly limited player. I love his leadership and everything, but the form tipped it over for me.
I feel like he brings it all together for you guys.
Yeah, he does. He's so, and like without seeing it for myself, the effect that he must have on the change room, I think, is excellent and would be second to none. So I think that's why they're so eager to keep him, because they brought this point up after the City game. I think maybe on Sky Sports punditry they were talking about how maybe it was a mistake to let Wijnaldum go instead of letting Henderson go, because I think Liverpool were faced with the dilemma they pretty much had to pick one. And I think we did miss Wijnaldum in that game against City, to be fair. But, I mean, Henderson, if they're going to pick Henderson over Wijnaldum, it was really good for us last season in a season that wasn't great for us. It just shows you how much they believe in him as a captain and him as a leader of this team. And to be fair, I think his footballing ability is quite good, to be fair, for what he is. But he's just fallen off a little bit in the last month. So that probably tipped it over the edge for me not to pick him.
Yeah, I felt like last year, like you obviously missed. I think Henderson was injured for a lot of the season for you guys last year, and Van Dijk obviously like the whole season.
Yeah,
but I think like missing Henderson in midfield as well was a massive loss for you guys.
In midfield, yeah, that was the key in mid, because we had to play him centre back a lot.
Yeah, so, you know, you know who would have been a really interesting shout, and I think the only reason why we didn't pick him, Fernandinho.
Yeah, I was thinking that, but you got Fabinho and Rodri.
Yeah, but the only reason why we didn't pick Fernandinho though is because he hasn't been playing over the last like 2 seasons pretty much, because he's like 36, 37. But like if we're basing this like taking them at their absolute peak, you're probably taking Fernandinho over both of those, to be honest.
Yeah, it would be close. I think Fabinho is probably the best natural defender, even when Fernandinho was in his prime. But Fernandinho is way more mobile
Yeah.
when he was in his prime than Fabinho is. So it would be another interesting question, like you say, and the other one who would have been interesting to have would have been Aguero as well. That would have been a really fun one.
But yeah, if he actually stayed with them, Gundogan is also a good shout as well. But I don't know.
It's amazing. He's such a
He
good midfielder,
yeah
but he didn't really factor in any of our thought processes.
for
Really,
some reason though, like whenever I watch him play, like I don't know if it's just because he doesn't necessarily do anything special, like he doesn't necessarily play those sort of he doesn't necessarily like beat players with a piece of skill or play that defense splitting pass, but he's sort of like a I don't know if you'll agree with me on this, but he's sort of like a Henderson type player where he just sort of keeps things ticking in the midfield. I don't know if you agree with that or not, but he just doesn't
well,
have that. For me, he doesn't have that like X factor, that wow factor when I look at a Foden or a De Bruyne, for instance.
yeah. And if you want to play from the technical standpoint to keep things ticking over, then he's probably your guy in there. Definitely over Henderson. Henderson is more a keep things ticking over guy in terms of the shape and the press and the counter press and the work rate. I think, and that's just because Liverpool play in such a different way to City. One thing you can say about Gundogan, though, especially last season, he really added goals to his game. He was timing runs into the box, and he had some sort of crazy scoring streak last season. So he would have been an interesting pick if you maybe wanted a few goals from midfield as well. But he's definitely a good technical player for keeping things ticking over, like you say.
Yeah, but
I don't think we missed anyone else who maybe should have got a
um,
mention. I don't think so.
you know what? Like if I think Kelleher would have been a really good backup. Like he in the matches that I've seen from him, he's looked very good actually. But obviously
No,
you're picking either Edison or Becker. But if you sort of made it that you can pick like one Brazilian goalkeeper, if you put that stipulation in, Kelleher's like for me he's impressed me a lot.
no, he looks really good, really calm. But I mean, he's coming up
Kanate as
against Alisson.
well. Yeah, Kanate and Chamberlain and Simicas as well would have been good shouts.
No, none of them. Maybe Canate, but I still haven't seen enough because it's his first season. Maybe Matip could have Matip versus Stones. Maybe is a bit of an argument.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we've gone through everyone now.
James Milner.
No way, man. Not at this stage of his career. Not with the competition.
Karius.
Yeah, all right. All right. I think now that Loris Karras' name has been said, I think this is where we wrap up the pod.
Yeah, I think that's a good one to end it on.
Yeah, it's code word. It's like gotta go.
Yeah, it's the safe word.
Oh, Nev. As always, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for coming on, wrapping up the Champions League and doing that little fun draft thing at the end. I hope the listeners enjoyed and it's been really fun. I enjoyed it, so it's been fun having you on. Thanks, Nev.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and see everyone next week.
See you guys. Bye.